Hello and welcome to Macro Monday here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is March 24th, 2025, and this is the last full week of the month and the quarter. So we're going to take a look at Bitcoin. We're going to start out today by looking at the daily and the nice bounce up, the nice higher low, and kind of look at where Bitcoin is in the context of the overhead resistance and the downside supports. We'll take a look at the weekly, see where that finished up, and then we'll take a look at the monthly and quarterly quickly. We'll focus a little bit more on that towards the Friday video, but we're also going to take a look at ETH and Solana because that is pretty popular in terms of what you all have requested. That's only going to be a quick look and a little bit of a quick overview for those because Bitcoin is the market leader. Where Bitcoin goes, at minimum, most coins will follow in terms of their US dollar pairs. When Bitcoin dominance starts to drop, then we can start taking a little bit of a deeper look at some of the other altcoins. But at this point, let's focus on Bitcoin and we'll focus on this daily. So let's get started. Bitcoin is now in a little bit of an uptrend here. I will caution that it's right up against resistance, and we'll take a look at this in a moment, but it has tagged the resistance as overhead. So we have seen this low get tagged now at 88,700, and we'll see that much more clearly in just a moment when I turn on the local support and resistance areas of interest. But that doesn't mean that it can't keep pushing through. One of the big things that I've stressed before in terms of this overall downtrend that is now trying to turn itself around in a trend reversal posture on the daily with this nice little uptrend to the overhead resistance is that we need to start seeing follow through on some of the time frames above the daily, even if the daily starts to come back down. Now, the big area to pay attention to the downside now for the daily is this last higher low here at 83,100. And then, of course, the little bit of a consolidation that did result in a swing high and a closing high, and then a swing higher low here. That would be around 81,125. So in general, if we do see price come back down towards the basis band here on the daily, which is just over $84,000 at 84, so it's kind of floating around between 84,350 and 84,400. Then keep an eye on this last higher low swing at 83,100. Bulls do want to try to hold that. If not, they're still safe to come back down and test in and around, 82 at the close down to this 81,125, where this close open is coming in on the daily here, just above that swing at around that $81,000. If we do see that area dropped, it's very highly likely that we could see $79,000 to $80,000 down here by the lower second standard deviation and a retest of this overall low structure. Let's go ahead and turn on the local support and resistance and see where things are lining up in terms of confluent areas of interest to the upside and downside with our Bollinger Band volatility set here. So for those that might be new here, I use the Bollinger Bands to gauge contraction and expansion along with BBWP, which is essentially the volatility metrics for the Bollinger Bands. And in this case, if we do see a close in the weak half of the Bollinger Bands, that would be losing $85,000, which is the first bearish candle post expansion out of the prior range down here. Now that was the big consolidation range last year. On the high side, roughly around $68,000 to just shy of $74,000 there. Now that did get front run on the most recent low, and I would consider this a major low now, around this 76,555 to the 78, around 78,550 on the low here. We did not get a close below this 78,167 swing low. This was a pretty high volume swing low after losing this $85,000 area, which was an important daily as it turned out. So it was a good thing that we've had that marked since, pretty much since the move up in general. But you can see that down here, just below $85,000, that would be a warning that Bitcoin is likely going to test the daily basis band. just above 84 at 84, 350 to 400. And then eyes on this low here at 83, 100. Any lower than that, we're looking to the lower first. And that's coming in just shy of $82,000 at 81,760. And of course, then the next big wick low right around $81,000 where the close open here is coming in on the daily. Anywhere below there, we're looking to that lower second, right around that $79,000 to $80,000. If it does drop below there, we're looking mid $78,000 by the close open lower low down here. And quite frankly, 78 to that 76,555 is fair game at that point. But as long as it's closing above that 76,555, even if a swing did come down through the bands on the bottom side here where we have some confluent levels by the lower third, and hit that 73,835 top side of that prior accumulation range from last year, as long as it's closing inside of this, it's just fine. Now, we can see that just overhead, Bitcoin did close above the daily upper first standard deviation. That is a positive. And it did tag and reject, at least on first pass, this overhead resistance, which is the range lows up here, right? And that is the 1.168 from the prior cycle high at $69,000 to the bear market low at 15.5. This is an extension off of that. In this case, 16.8% above there at 88,700. That's also confluent with this daily higher low. Then we have the closes in here where we had this close open higher low that was set at just under $92,000. You might as well call it $92,000. So 88,700 to $92,000 is the zone that Bitcoin needs to reclaim. You can see all the front runs of it, the swings into it here, and then finally a close in it, and then a breakdown from it that led to the big move down to where we are now. And in this case, we need to see this area reclaimed. You can see just above there, we have the upper second standard deviation at 89,600. If Bitcoin continues to rise towards this, I would expect this to move to around $90,000. But right now it's right around this swing low here, which was a weekly higher low before going up and making new all-time highs. And we'll take a look at that when we take a look at the weekly here. But you can see just above there, we have the upper third right around $92,000. So this big red zone needs to be reclaimed. Just above there, bulls need to reclaim the weekly higher low, the last higher low on a close at 93.5 to go test $95,000 to $96,000. You'll see why that's important in just a moment. That's also the bottom side of this consolidation here before the breakdown to new lows and the breakdown from the range. Now, an area of interest kind of right in between the weekly and that consolidation before breakdown is these twin tower candles here. And, this is going to be very important. So when Bitcoin initially pushed down to right around $78,000, it was looking like it wanted mean reversion. And then we had a post from Trump that came out regarding crypto, initially altcoins, and then followed that with a Bitcoin and Ethereum post. And that exacerbated this move off of $85,000. We had the close above already in on that Saturday, and then Sunday Trump posted. We had that tag of $85,000 nearly to the dot there. And then a pump right to that weekly. And then the Monday session opened, came right back down to $85,000 on the swing low and closed just above there in the $86,000 region. Now this break up to break down, this needs to be reclaimed on a close. Of course, if we see that, we're probably already testing this consolidation over here. Above there, of course, I would look for a price to start getting expansion inside of this upper range here to that 101 area. Might have to contend with right around $99,500 to $100,000 here, but essentially I would be looking anywhere above there to the 101 to 104 region, again by the 1272 extension, or 27.2% above the prior cycle fib pole at 103,645. So essentially right where that daily's coming in at 104,000 on the dot. Anywhere above there, we're looking at the highs and higher. Let's look at a few other things to kind of gauge what is going on here on the daily. We'll get rid of support and resistance zones of interest for right now. We'll zoom out a bit here. We'll take a look at kind of where things are. So we've got this slew of highs on RSI, and then we've got this higher high on RSI, and you'll see that this the last real confirmed high is going to be this high here that was coming in at 92,800, or just shy of $93,000 here. And price is trading lower, so if it does put in a high, we are going to get some continuation drives of bearish divergence. So higher highs on RSI, lower highs on Bitcoin, provided it closes anywhere below 82.8 in this case and puts in an actual confirmed closing high. So just be aware of that. And I would say that if that did happen, it would likely try to run the low side structure again. And while that's not kind of like a game over kind of thing, that is, downside price action, I think it would actually be constructive. But we'll see where Bitcoin actually puts in a high. But it is something to be aware of, that we are getting significantly higher highs on relative strength versus where price action is trading. And we can extend that out to kind of where the Stoke not Stoke RSI. This is a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of this stuff on here. We don't need ADX and DMI and all that good stuff. So we'll get rid of that for right now. We'll keep that. We'll get rid of DMI. We don't really need this. I don't really talk about this stuff too much. It is something that that I keep track of, but many here don't. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And actually, we'll keep the DMI on this part of the chart. But this is close over close price momentum. Stoke RSI measures the velocity of RSI. We already looked at RSI. I don't need a momentum indicator for the relative strength indicator. So I don't need an indicator of an indicator. In this case, we can just take a look at close over close price momentum. In this case, closes above 85,000 or 84,850 to 84,900, essentially $85,000 is still pressure to the upside for the daily. That looks good for now to at least try to keep testing up, provided it does not put in a high. If we see a high put in and Stoke is pointed to the upside, still expect it to turn in the next couple of closures, or maybe even the next closure. So something to be aware of as Bitcoin is butting up against some pretty major prior supports that is resistance now. So just keep an eye on it. It's looking constructive right now, so we'll have to see how it continues that way. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the intermediate time frames. Yeah, 2 days button up against the basis band here at 88, 150 or so. We do have a 2-day Stoke cross back to the upside. RSI is just kind of making its way up out of the bearish control zone to the midline, which midline is at 89.5, almost $90,000. And again, that is going to be right where the upper second standard deviation is on the daily, right in the middle of that overhead resistance between 88,700 and $92,000. So just be aware of that. Now, Stoke momentum is pointed up above $82,000. Let's go to the 3-day real quick here. The 2-day and 3-day are going to be closing with this daily candle. Now, it's still Monday for me, but the Tuesday session is open. So with the Tuesday closure, we'll get the 2- and 3-day closure. So above 79.5, we will continue with momentum back to the upside for the 3-day here. 4-day is also going to be closing with the daily 2-day and 3-day with the Tuesday candle here, and closes above $86,000. We'll turn momentum back to the upside and even possibly get a Stoke cross, or I'm sorry, an RSI cross over the moving average here. So that would be good. And something to keep an eye on, the midline or the basis band, or 20 simple in this case, of the 4-day here is at $93,000. 5-day has 2 days to go, so we will talk about this one on Wednesday after close, as the rest of the 2-day session and then the Wednesday candle, once that closes, I will the Thursday session will be open. We'll have the closure for the 5-day here. Basis band at $94,000, coming in across this consolidation, low side consolidation structure up here before the breakdown. This would be seen as mean reversion back to the basis, but if it can get above it, that's when we can start entertaining moves to the upper first there, which is right around where 101. And there's that big zone of interest in this range up here between 101 and 104. So keep an eye on that, and we'll talk about it on Wednesday. 5 days ready to cross up on any closes above $83,000. So we want to see continued closes for the next 2 sessions. Above 83, that would look pretty damn good. And then, of course, there's the weekly. Now, the weekly did set a swing low, and that swing low is coming off the lower second standard deviation. We're continuing with compression here on the weekly Bollinger Band set. Yes, we have picked up volatility within the Bollinger Bands, but whenever you're moving from expansion to compression, the lower bands and the upper bands typically act as support on the low side and resistance on the top side until we see a close over close below the lower second that also can break the lows here, which, by the way, is right around where that lower third standard deviation is, which is coming in now at $76,000. Then we can entertain an actual expansive move down in to test the top side of this prior consolidation structure between, essentially $68,000 to that $73,835. Other than that, this is, looking like it wants mean reversion. Now, I will keep an eye on this lower first standard deviation, which is right where Bitcoin has tested, which is also the big support resistance zone overhead for price here, right around 88,500 in this case. And this will slightly adjust throughout the week as price moves. But we want to see that recovered, and then we're playing between the lower first and the basis on the weekly for volatility purposes, which is the basis is just below $95,000, coming in at $94,700 essentially. Above there, we have the upper first, and again, this is right where the 5 days is at that 101, so that's a big area, big area. Any closures above there, and then we're playing to the upper second, which is right around the highs here, coming in at 107, closes above there, and of course above the all-time high. We're looking for expansion into the next leg up for the weekly here. And looks, this looks like pretty bog standard stuff. Now, what I will say is because of the kind of goofy structure that we see on the weekly here in terms of a higher high with a lower high close, and then a lower low and lower low close, in order for this just to become a deviation, this move will have to come all the way up here and start closing above 109,360 and the upper second to turn this into a deviation into the next leg up. So what I would be aware of on the weekly is some sort of a move up to a lower high and then a move back down. And as long as this low holds, then we can look for higher low equal low structure. So there's 2 kind of scenarios to play out here on the weekly or think about coming into the next quarter, and that is a move where we get something like this that can just recover out and make this a deviation lower low, or we end up with a move that could look something like this if it's going to be nice and bullish. As maybe it even comes up here, and this is just an example. So please don't take this as this is what's going to happen. Then we look for higher low equal low structure from there, and then we look for it to break that lower high. So higher low, get a lower high to higher low, and then a trend break, and this would be your trend reversal, the higher low to trend break of that lower high if it were to do that. Otherwise, we're looking for the possibility of a deviation or a V recovery, some people would call it, to the next leg. Now, I can't tell you what's going to play out, but the other scenario would be something like this, where it actually is bearish and then it breaks down, right, and goes in for the retest. So there's three scenarios that you can kind of spec out, right, and that is this is a deviation to brand new highs in the next leg, or we get a lower high to a higher low trend reversal, trend break setup on the weekly, or we get a lower high to lower low that goes in for a retest of this range down here. Those are the 3 kind of scenarios to think about moving forward. So I don't have a preference. I think that cheaper sats are better sats because you can get more of them. So I'm all for lower prices, but we have to be realistic. This is a nice bounce off the lower second standard deviation, expansion into compression. This was expected. I've talked quite a bit about this for a while. And, the other thing that we could see, in the case of like a lower high, higher low, equal low structure that could set up a trend reversal, if it doesn't just go and take out the all-time high, would be that this flattens out the bands and goes into an extended range for a little while. So that is another scenario that just kind of carves out a range and a bigger range at that, and allows for some more accumulation. Be aware of the weekly setups here too. Let's take a look at RSI here. So RSI has passed the midline. It hasn't thrown any crossover signals for RSI just yet. Where is the scale midline? 86,165. Where is the bullish control zone? $70,000. So essentially, if it was to test the edge of the bearish control zone, bearish control zone, that would be, of course, a retest of last year's, the high side of last year's accumulation structure. Where is the bullish control zone, though? Bullish control zone is going to be 102,300. So that would be well within the overhead range. And then just for shits and giggles, let's take a look at where the extreme end of things would be at the critical zone up there. That'd be at $162,000, nearly $163,000 up there. So, there is always that potential as well. Let's look at the Stochastic momentum indicator here. 90,300 is the number to beat. And of course, that's right in that overhead resistance between that 88,700 and 92K. So if we do see a close above there by the end of this week, that would look really good coming into the monthly and quarterly closes. This is the last full week of the monthly and quarterly sessions. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, there is one other thing that I wanted to show you here. For this move down, I believe, what did I pull here? I pulled one of these fibs. Where did I pull it from? Ah, yes, the twin tower candles to beat. So one of the things that I wanted to look at here is this has kind of become its own little accumulation here. Possible reversal setup from here, right? Possible major low that could turn into a longer term major low. It's definitely a major low on the daily for now. So if it is broken below, that's where we're going for those tests. But you can see from the $95,000, essentially this is the bottom side of the accumulation before the breakdown, which is why I pulled the retest of it down to the actual low here at the 76,555. You'll see how the original rejections came off the 50% here, and then a move up to the 618, and then a close literally right on it. And now Bitcoin is trying to push above it. So just something interesting. And what I did want to note is it doesn't matter which way you pull this, but on this could be a 618 if this is the one spot, or if this is the one spot, this would be a 382. Well, where is the 382 in the way that this is pulled right now? It's at the last higher low. So 83. 178, basically right on the dot there. So pretty interesting confluence with that last low. Bulls want to see this push into that overhead resistance and start closing in there. Otherwise, if it does put in a high or just as an example, 88.8 here from yesterday's high, the Monday high, or today's still for me, and it does come back down, big area of interest is going to be this last higher low. So keep an eye on it. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out to the monthly. What do we want to see for closes? And I'm going to get into the weeds with this one on the Friday wrap up. But the upper first standard deviation is where the bulls want to see a close above. And in this case, it's at 84,800. All right, so it's essentially $85,000, which is also that daily area, right? That daily candle post expansion, that bear candle post expansion out of the range here, right? That daily candle was coming in at $85,000. Essentially, we want to see that closed above. by the month's end and quarterly end. That would put Bitcoin in the volatility zone of interest between the upper first and upper second. Whereas the upper second, that's at 107. So right around the highs, and it closes above there. And we can start entertaining, moves all the way up to $130,000 by the upper third and likely higher as the basis band will continue to rise. And that on the monthly is at 62,700. Looks really good, honestly. A nice pullback into higher low structure here would look really good. Let's just say for shits and giggles that 95,128 is the high of the March candle. That means that if the April candle closes above it, that would solidify this 76,555 as the swing low and closing higher low, and a series of higher lows here. So that would look really good. At minimum to come back and test the highs and possibly higher and go on another leg. Where is the monthly momentum? We'll look at RSI in just a moment, but 101,755 rather. So basically $102,000. We should see that come down a bit. We do have this bearish divergence that played out within the context of the bullish control zone. Oh, wait, RSI was so much higher over here. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all about this uptrending move. And when we do see a high put in, right, it's not as powerful when looking at prior cycle highs as the in-trend bearish divergence in this case. So in-trend bearish divergence is what we're going to keep an eye on. And just out of curiosity, let's take a look. So it's kind of ran to the same level of RSI around the 77 to 78 read. But let's go ahead and take a look at the bullish control zone, or the edge of the bullish control zone here on the bottom side. It would be on closes below 82,369. Nice. And if we were to look to the bull critical zone up here, we'd be looking at about $169,000. Nice. And just out of curiosity, let's see, where is the user alert level up there? Well, that's all the way at $230,000. The bottom side, of course, is out of the question, as it is impossible to go to zero. Now, quarterly's going to be big. I would like to see closes above, would look really good. Close above $89.5, $90,000 by that upper second standard deviation. That would look really, really good. We are coming off of course, a quarterly higher low on not just a swing, but a close. So nothing really crazy going on there. Momentum to the upside. This is going to be the same as if you pulled it from the index. It's going to be 60,500, 60,600. So good and far away from price action for the moment. Generally, Bitcoin is making progress to the upside. It is up against resistance, so I would exercise caution. We want to see a reclaim of overhead resistance, and essentially the bottom side closes of this range would be really nice. $92,000, especially over here on the close open. That was kind of holding price up before we got a close under it and then dumped out. So that's going to be the big one to watch, and I'd like to see that all closed above by the end of the monthly and quarterly. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum real quick. We'll follow up with where we left off. And hey, guess what? Ethereum pushing up against the red zone, just like Bitcoin in this case. Ethereum lost a major level between 2100 and 2300. What do we need to see closes above? Well, the red zone and this swing high up here. And that is at 2320. Now we do have some uptrending structure into overhead resistance. Just be careful in and around these areas, as we do have the upper first to the upper third bracketing this zone in terms of volatility. So don't be surprised if it pulls back from here, even if it pushes into the zone. We do need to see daily closes above that 2320, which is even outside of the top side of this zone by that upper third. That would look really good. But even if it comes back down, be aware of this higher low at 1936. If it does drop it, we're going to come back down somewhere in the 1800 area. Again, maybe even a retest of 1800 directly by the lower second. And then we kind of gauge things from there. So just be aware of where things are on the daily. And in this case, 1957 is the momentum pivot. Looks fine. Let's just check the weekly here. Weekly would set, we got to see closes above this swing high here, 2152 inside of this red zone. Set that weekly low. That would look pretty good. Is there anything interesting on RSI in this case? No, because the way it busted out of that range for this particular structure, we're not seeing anything. And in trend, we did see, this in terms of this downtrend here on the weekly, we could see mean reversion, and man, mean reversion can really kill it all the way to the upside, almost a 3K, and it still wouldn't do much, but at least it would give it a shot for higher low equal low structure on the weekly. So just be aware of this red zone, 2100 to basically 2320. That's the area to beat for now, and we'll kind of keep it at that for right now. Weekly in terms of momentum pivot, well, this is actually a pretty nice setup if it can hold this most recent low. 2380 is going to be the momentum pivot for the weekly. We'll see what that updates to, especially if this week ends up being green for Ethereum. Let's go ahead and take a look at Solana. Solana, it has some work to do. Big thing for Solana. Needs to crack above that 180, just like Bitcoin. But in this case, it's in between major overhead resistance now that was prior support, but it's also sitting on a major weekly support and longer term time frame support here at about that 125 on the close opens for the weeklies that we'll take a look at here. It has ran back to the upper second. It is in a nice little uptrend, but again, keep an eye on around 125 to 124.81 in this case. On the any kind of a downside move, if that is broken, it's either already testing the 118 or it's going to go in for a retest of these lows around that. You can call it 120 to this 110, 112 swing low would be fair game, which there is some internal structure here on the weekly between just about 120 and $100. So it does have some work to do. The major overhead resistance on the weekly is up here at 169. Nice. Almost 170. And then just above there, it's got to start cracking back above 180. The dailies looking good to keep upside momentum above 131 on closes. Let's take a look at that weekly. And this is what I mean with this being such a major support. This is like what Ethereum was doing, where it was just teasing on the edge of a major support, and then it broke down. That's the red zone between 2100 and 2300 essentially for Ethereum, and it broke down below there. Well, Solana is like right where Ethereum was before it broke down, and that is just on a massive support. And if it closes anywhere here or higher, it'll set that swing low, closing low structure. But its last high is an all-time high, right? So it's got to build some structure. So I would, even if this starts to get really bullish, run all the way to $200, I would still be on the lookout from a weekly perspective for lower highs as it relates to the all-time high. That doesn't mean it can't just V recover out of here and make an all-time high, right? But I'd be looking for a lower high, even if it's on a swing, and then some higher low equal low structure to build, kind of like what I was talking about for that weekly structure on Bitcoin, right? There's a few different paths for recovery here, but I do think that Solana might have to take its time, but that would be more constructive than if it just ran back to its all-time high. I will tell you that. I wouldn't want to see this just run right back to its all-time high. I mean, the trade is great, but for longer-term constructive price action to an actual breakout to the upside for a leg up to some really deep targets, I wouldn't want to see this just pop right back to its highs, to be quite honest. So I would want it to take its time and form some constructive price action and really get a serious leg loaded up to the upside here. But for right now, it looks good. We'll see where it closes. Closes this weekend. We'll talk about this throughout the week, but closes above 136 is what you want to see for Sol. And momentum shift on closes above 130. 127 actually. 127. Well, it's kind of floating around. 127 to 130 or so is going to be what the bulls are going to want to aim for. And that is going to do it for today. Let's go ahead and go back to Bitcoin. And yeah, you know, it is a move to resistance. Um, be cautiously optimistic if you're bullish. If you're bearish, you're looking for a rejection here and then a run not just to the lows but through the lows, and then the next, move down to get into the thick of the highs over here. I'll be honest. I think that the bulls have a shot here to solidify this low side structure here. I think they do have a legitimate shot. It's just a matter of, can they, follow through with reclaiming the lows of the range overhead, 88.7 to 92K. And then we'll come back to it on Wednesday for the Wednesday check-in. I want to thank you all. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.